Writing, pack a bag. You're coming with me. Mason Reed said it like he was asking me to grab tacos, not like he was standing in my doorway with 2 tickets to the World Cup in his hand. I just stared at him. One sock on. One sock missing. Laptop open behind me with a project I was already late finishing. I'm sorry, I said. What? Mason grinned and lifted the tickets higher, like maybe my brain needed visual help. World Cup. For days. Flight leaves tomorrow morning. My stomach dropped in that stupid way it always did around him. Not because of the tickets. Not exactly. Because Mason looked excited. Really excited. And for some reason, he had come to me first. That was the part one couldn't make sense of. Mason had other friends. Louder friends. Sports friends. Guys who could name every player without checking their phones. I liked soccer, sure, but Mason lived it. He yelled at the TV like coaches could hear him through the screen. He owned jerseys from teams he had no business caring about. He once skipped a family dinner because of a qualifier. So yeah, him going to the World Cup made sense. Him taking me didn't. Who canceled? I asked. His smile faded just a little. Nobody. Come on. I laughed because that felt safer. There's no way I was your first pick for this. Mason leaned against my doorframe, arms crossed, the tickets tucked between 2 fingers. He was wearing that faded navy hoodie I hated because it made him look unfairly good without trying. You were literally my first pick. The apartment went too quiet. Not dramatic quiet. Worse, real quiet. The kind where you suddenly hear the fridge humming and your own pulse acting embarrassing. I looked away first. Of course I did. That's weirdly sentimental for you. Don't ruin it. I'm just saying. Feels like a honeymoon for soccer idiots. Mason laughed, but his eyes stayed on me a second longer than they needed to. You'd be lucky. Heat climbed up my neck. I turned back toward my laptop like the export bar had become the most important thing in the world. It meant nothing. Mason joked like that with everyone. He threw an arm around people. He called waitresses sweetheart without thinking. He hugged his guy friends after 2 beers and acted like personal space was a rumor. That was just him. And me? I was the idiot who had been in love with my straight best friend for almost 3 years and still hadn't found a way to make it less pathetic. Ethan. His voice softened. That was dangerous too. I glanced over. Mason wasn't smiling now. Come with me. 2 words. Simple. Normal. Somehow they hit harder than they should have. I swallowed and tried to sound casual. You know I have work. Bring your laptop. I have rent. I got the hotel. Mason. Ethan. He stepped inside without asking, because he never asked, because my place had basically become his second apartment. Then he tossed one of the tickets onto my couch. I don't want to go with anyone else. My chest tightened so fast I almost hated him for it. Not because it was cruel, because it wasn't. Because he had no idea what lines like that did to me. I picked up the ticket and stared at it like it might explain everything. It didn't. You're serious. Dead serious. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. A laugh slipped out of me, nervous and too soft. You're insane. Mason's grin came back. Yeah, but you're packing. I should have said no. That would have been smarter. Safer. Easier. Instead, I looked at him standing in my living room like trouble in sneakers and said, fine. But if you cry during the anthem, I'm filming it. He pointed at me. If I cry, you're crying with me. And just like that, I was going. I told myself the dangerous part would be the flight. 2 seats. 6 hours. Mason falling asleep on my shoulder like he sometimes did during movie nights. I thought that was what I had to survive. I was wrong. The real problem didn't start until we reached the hotel. I found out the hotel had messed up our room while Mason was still trying to teach me a chant in the lobby. No, you were saying it like a tired substitute teacher. He stood way too close, grinning, one hand on my shoulder as if volume could be transferred through touch. Put some heart into it. I have heart. I also have dignity. Debatable. I shoved him lightly, and he laughed so loud the woman at the front desk smiled at us before looking back at her screen. That smile disappeared about 10 seconds later. I am so sorry, she said, fingers moving fast over the keyboard. There was an issue with the booking. My stomach tightened before I even knew why. Mason leaned on the counter, still relaxed. Of course he was. What kind of issue? The woman glanced between us. You reserved a double room, but due to the event, we are completely sold out. The only available room we can offer right now has 1 queen bed. For a second, the entire lobby noise blurred. Rolling suitcases, people yelling in jerseys, someone dropping a bag of snacks near the entrance. All of it faded behind those 3 words. One queen bed. Mason turned his head toward me. Not shocked. Not even worried. Just waiting to see my reaction, which was rude, honestly, because my reaction was currently trying to crawl out of my body. That is fine, he said. I looked at him so fast my neck nearly cracked. That is fine. Yeah. He shrugged. It is one bed, not a crime scene. The front desk woman pressed her lips together like she was trying not to laugh. I wanted the floor to open. We can find another hotel, I muttered. Mason raised an eyebrow. Ethan, there are people sleeping in rental cars right now. Maybe rental cars have boundaries. You kick in your sleep? No, then we are good. He handed over his card before I could argue again. That was Mason. Decisive. Casual. Completely unaware that my brain had started flashing warning signs like an airport runway. Upstairs, the hallway smelled like carpet cleaner and someone's overpriced cologne. Mason rolled his suitcase ahead of me, humming that stupid chant under his breath. I followed with my backpack digging into one shoulder, trying to act like I had not spent the elevator ride thinking about the size of a queen bed. It was normal. Friends shared beds sometimes. People did it on trips. People did it when rooms got messed up. People did not spiral because their straight best friend had nice hands and a habit of sleeping close during movies. The room was small. Clean, but small. One window. One bathroom. One television. One bed sitting right in the middle like a dare. Mason dropped his suitcase, looked at the bed, then threw himself onto it face first. Honestly, pretty comfortable. I stayed by the door. Great. Glad the mattress passed inspection. He rolled onto his back and stretched, hoodie riding up just enough for me to immediately look at the wall like it had breaking news on it. Come here. My heart kicked once. Why? Mason patted the empty side beside him. Test it. If it is bad, we riot. I trust your professional opinion. Ethan. He dragged my name out, amused. Do not make it weird. Too late. It was already weird. Not because of him. Because of me. Because I could handle Mason on my couch, Mason in my kitchen, Mason stealing fries off my plate. But Mason on a hotel bed in a city packed with World Cup fans, looking at me like this was nothing? That was different. I walked over anyway, because apparently I had no survival instinct. I sat on the edge, leaving enough space between us for a third person and possibly a small dog. Mason looked at the gap, then at me. Wow. What? I have seen middle school dances with less distance. I laughed too quickly. I am being respectful. You are acting like I bite. His eyes held mine for one beat too long. Then his mouth curved. Usually. My face went hot. Mason laughed and nudged my thigh with his foot. Relax. I am kidding. There it was. The safety net. The thing he always gave me right after saying something that made my pulse stupid. I grabbed onto it like always. You are bad at kidding. You love it. I looked down at my hands. Unfortunately, the word slipped out before I could catch it. Mason went quiet. Not long. Just long enough for me to feel it. Then he reached over and tugged lightly at the sleeve of my hoodie. Hey. I glanced up. His expression had softened in a way I did not know what to do with. I am glad you came. My chest tightened. Outside, someone in the street started cheering, loud and drunk and happy. Inside, Mason's fingers were still holding my sleeve. It meant nothing. That was what I told myself. But then he did not let go right away. The next morning, Mason woke me up by throwing a jersey at my face. Get dressed. We are leaving in 20. I peeled it off my head and glared at him from the bed. Good morning to you too. He was already by the mirror, fixing his hair with wet fingers, wearing his own jersey like he had been born ready for this exact day. It is not a good morning. It is match day. Respect the culture. I sat up slowly, trying very hard not to think about the fact that I had survived one night in the same room with him, and somehow felt less normal than before. Nothing had happened. Obviously. Mason took the side near the window. I took the side near the bathroom. There had been a full 2 feet between us when we fell asleep. Safe. Reasonable. Friendly. But when I woke up around 4 in the morning, his arm had been stretched across the middle of the bed, his knuckles just barely touching my wrist. Barely. Almost nothing. I still stayed awake for 20 minutes staring at it. Now he turned from the mirror and caught me looking at him. What? Nothing. You are doing the thing. What thing? Where your face gets loud. I stood too fast and grabbed the jersey. My face is private. Mason smiled like he knew something I did not. That was the problem with him. Sometimes he looked at me like he was reading subtitles I did not know I was showing. The city outside was already losing its mind by the time we got downstairs. Fans packed the sidewalks in waves of red, white, and blue. Someone had a drum. Someone else was wearing an eagle costume that looked like it had seen better days. Mason bought coffee from a cart and handed me mine without asking. I looked at the cup. You remembered? Oat milk. 2 sugars. Because you pretend you like real coffee, but you actually want dessert. My chest did that annoying tight thing again. That is a lot of judgment from a guy who drinks gas station vanilla lattes. Those are American classics. Those are crimes. He laughed and reached over to fix the collar of my jersey. Just a small adjustment. His fingers brushed my neck, and my whole body forgot how to be casual. I stopped walking. Mason noticed immediately. Of course he did. His hand stayed there for half a second too long before he dropped it. Tag was sticking out. Right. I took a sip of coffee, so I would have something to do with my mouth besides confess a 3-year secret in the middle of a sidewalk. Outside the stadium, the crowd got so thick we could barely move. Mason shifted closer, his shoulder pressed against mine. Stay with me. I am literally next to you. Yeah, and you are terrible in crowds. Before I could argue, his hand found mine. Not my sleeve. Not my wrist. My hand. His fingers wrapped around mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. I looked down, then up at him. Mason kept his eyes forward, jaw relaxed, scanning the crowd. Like this was nothing. Like my heart was not suddenly trying to break out of my ribs. It meant nothing. It was crowded. People held hands in crowds so they would not get separated. Normal. Practical. Very straight. Then a group of fans squeezed past us, pushing me into his side. Mason tightened his grip instead of letting go. You good? His mouth was close to my ear because of the noise. Too close. Yeah. My voice came out rough. I am good. He glanced down at me then, and the noise around us seemed to dip for 1 second. His eyes stayed on mine longer than they should have. Long enough that I forgot the chant, the crowd, the stadium, everything. Then someone behind us yelled, "Cute couple. Make room." I froze. Mason did too. The smart thing would have been to laugh. Correct them. Say, "We are not a couple." Mason always had a joke ready. Always. But this time, he said nothing. He just looked at our hands, still locked together. Then he looked back at me. A tiny smile pulled at the corner of his mouth, softer than a joke. "Come on," he murmured, tugging me forward. "We are missing kickoff." He did not let go until we reached our seats. And even then, I could still feel the shape of his hand in mine. By the time the match ended, my voice was almost gone and Mason looked happier than I had seen him in years. His hair was messy from yelling. His cheeks were flushed. He had one arm thrown around my shoulders as we moved with the crowd, and every few minutes, he squeezed me like he forgot he was still touching me. "Admit it," he shouted over the noise. "Best decision of your life. Top 5. Top 5. He looked offended. "I flew you across the country. You also made me sleep next to a window that whistles. That window has character. That window has a medical condition." Mason laughed, leaning into me so hard I had to catch his waist for balance. It was automatic. Just my hand against his side for 1 second. Maybe 2. But he stopped laughing. Not completely. It just softened. His eyes dropped to where my hand was, then came back to my face. "I let go too fast. Crowd pushed you." "Yeah." His voice had changed. Lower. The crowd. We got back to the hotel late, still buzzing from the game. Mason kicked off his sneakers by the door and collapsed onto the bed with his phone already open, replaying highlights like he had not just lived through them in person. I stayed near the desk, pretending to check messages. Really, I needed distance. A little air. A chance to remind myself that almost holding his waist in a stadium exit did not mean anything. Mason glanced up. "You are quiet." "I am tired." "You are always tired when you are hiding something." My thumb froze over my phone screen. "That is not true." "It is extremely true." He sat up, the mattress shifting under him. "You get all careful." I forced a laugh. "Sorry, I am not emotionally loud like you." "I am not emotionally loud." "Mason, you yelled at a referee from section 300 like he personally owed you money." "That was different." He grinned, then patted the space beside him. "Come here. Watch this goal again. It is art." I should have stayed at the desk. I knew that. But my body had a terrible habit of betraying me where Mason was involved. I sat beside him, close enough that our shoulders touched. On the tiny hotel television, The crowd replayed in slow motion. On Mason's phone, the goal played again. He leaned closer, excited, pointing at the screen. Look at that pass. That is insane. I watched his face instead. Big mistake. Mason noticed. Of course he noticed. His smile faded, just a little. What? Nothing. There is that nothing again. I looked away. You are annoying. And yet you came with me. Free ticket. Liar. The word came out gentle. Too gentle. I turned back, ready to make some dumb joke, but Mason was already looking at me. Not at my jersey. Not at the phone. Me. The space between us felt smaller than before. It had been small all day, in the crowd, in the seats, in the hallway, but this was different. No noise to hide behind. No fans shoving us together. Just a quiet hotel room, and Mason close enough that I could see the tiny cut near his lip from where he had bitten it during the penalty kick. We look like a couple today, he murmured. My heart kicked hard. I laughed because that was what I did when I was scared. Yeah, a very tragic couple. Mason did not laugh. That was the problem. He always laughed. He always saved me from things becoming too real. This time, he just watched me. Would that be so bad? My whole body went still. The air changed. I could feel it. I could feel him waiting. I could feel myself standing at the edge of something I had spent 3 years avoiding. Mason, his eyes flicked down for half a second. Not in a way I could explain. Just enough to make my throat go dry. Then he looked back up, and neither of us moved. The phone screen went dark between us. The room went quiet. Too quiet. He shifted closer, barely an inch, but I felt it everywhere. I could have pulled back. I should have. Instead, I sat there like an idiot, wondering if this was the moment I had wanted and feared at the exact same time. Then Mason's phone exploded with noise. A video call. Tyler from back home. The ringtone cut through the room like an alarm. Mason blinked first. I looked away so fast it almost hurt. He grabbed the phone, cleared his throat, and answered with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Bro, you would not believe this game. Tyler yelled through the speaker, loud and drunk and completely unaware he had just dragged us back from whatever that was. Mason turned the camera toward the ceiling. I stood up, pretending I needed water. My hands were shaking a little. I told myself the call saved us from making it weird. But when I glanced back, Mason was not watching the phone. He was watching me, and for the first time, he looked like he wished we had not been interrupted. Tyler did not just interrupt the moment. He stayed on the call for 47 minutes. I know because I watched the clock like it had personally wronged me. Mason sat on the bed with his back against the headboard, phone angled toward his face, doing his normal Mason thing. Laughing, talking trash, replaying every detail of the match like Tyler had not already seen 10 clips online. I stood near the mini fridge for way too long, then sat at the desk, then pretended to answer emails I was absolutely not reading. Every few minutes, Mason's eyes found me. Quick at first, then not so quick. And every time they did, my chest got tight all over again. Where is Ethan? Tyler shouted through the speaker. Mason's mouth twitched. Right here. Put him on. I need to see the man who got promoted from couch buddy to international soccer wife. I nearly choked on my water. Mason laughed, but it sounded a little forced. Do not be weird. Me? You took him to the World Cup and got one hotel room. I am just reading the brochure. My face went hot. Tell Tyler I hate him. Mason turned the camera toward me before I could hide. Tyler appeared on the screen, red-faced, probably in some sports bar back home. There he is. Ethan, blink twice if Mason has made this romantic. I am blocking your number. That is not a denial. Mason lowered the phone slightly. Ty. His voice had a warning in it. Not angry. Just sharp enough that even Tyler noticed. The grin on Tyler's face faded into something curious. Relax, man. I am joking. Mason did not smile. Yeah, I know. The room shifted again. Not like earlier. Not soft. This was tighter. Tyler cleared his throat, then started talking about the next match, but I barely heard him. Because Mason had gone quiet in that particular way people do when a joke lands somewhere too close to the truth. A few minutes later, he ended the call with some excuse about needing sleep. The second the screen went black, neither of us moved. The hotel room felt smaller than before. He is an idiot, I muttered. Mason set the phone face down on the blanket. He was just messing around. I know. You looked uncomfortable. That made me laugh once, but there was no humor in it. I mean, yeah, being called your soccer wife on speakerphone is a pretty specific experience. Mason rubbed a hand over his face, and looked toward the window. Sorry. I expected him to joke after that. Something easy. Something that put the floor back under us. He did not. I sat on the edge of the desk chair, fingers curled around the cold water bottle. It is fine. Is it? His eyes came back to me. Because every time someone says something like that, you act like you got caught doing something wrong. My stomach dropped. That is not fair. Maybe not. He shifted forward, elbows on his knees. But it is true. I hated that he could sound calm while saying things that made me feel split open. I looked down at the carpet. People joke about us all the time. Yeah. Because we are close. I know. And because you are, I stopped. Too late. Mason's gaze sharpened. Because I am what? I swallowed. The words were right there. Straight. Safe. Impossible. The wall I had been leaning on for years. Nothing. Mason stood, slowly. Not dramatic. Just enough movement to make my pulse jump. You always do that too. Do what? Stop right before you say what you actually mean. I forced myself to look at him. Maybe because what I mean would make things weird. He took one step closer, then stopped like he was trying not to scare me off. Things are already weird. The honesty of it hit harder than any joke could have. Outside, someone yelled from the street. A car horn answered. Life kept going like I was not sitting there with my heart in my throat. Mason looked tired suddenly. Not from the match. From whatever he was fighting in his own head. My dad called earlier, he said, quieter. Before Tyler. I blinked, thrown by the shift. Okay. Mason's jaw worked once. He saw a picture I posted. You and me outside the stadium. I remembered it. Mason's arm around my shoulders. My smile too real. His cheek pressed close to mine. He said we looked like a couple of idiots. Mason gave a small laugh, but it died fast. Then he asked if I had met any girls yet. There it was. The outside world. Casual. Heavy. Familiar. Mason looked away first this time. I did not know why that made me so mad. My chest softened and hurt at the same time. I wanted to say something brave. I wanted to tell him it was okay to be confused, okay to not have the perfect answer, okay to look at me the way he had been looking. Instead, fear got there first. Mason, you do not have to figure anything out because of some joke. His face closed a little. Right. I mean it. We can just be normal. He nodded, but it looked like he hated the word. Normal. Then he stepped back. Just one step, but I felt it like a door shutting. Yeah, sure. That night, when we finally got into bed, Mason stayed on his side. No teasing. No shoulder bump. No accidental touch across the middle. Just space. Safe, careful space. And somehow, after everything, that hurt worse. By morning, the space between us felt louder than the street outside. Mason was already awake when I opened my eyes, sitting by the window with one knee pulled up, scrolling through his phone without really looking at it. His hair was still messy from sleep. His jersey from yesterday hung over the desk chair. The room felt too normal for how strange my chest felt. Morning, I mumbled. Mason glanced over. Morning. That was it. No joke. No dramatic complaint about my alarm. No stolen blanket accusation. Just morning. I hated it. I sat up, rubbing my face. You want breakfast? Sure. His answer came too fast, like he had been waiting for any excuse to move. We ended up at a crowded diner 2 blocks from the hotel, the kind of place packed with fans wearing jerseys and sunglasses indoors. Mason ordered pancakes and coffee. I ordered eggs I barely touched. Across from me, he kept looking at my plate like he wanted to say something, then stopping himself. That somehow made everything worse. I could handle Mason loud. I could handle Mason teasing. Careful Mason made me nervous. You are doing it now, I said finally. He blinked. Doing what? Being weirdly polite. His mouth tightened like he almost smiled. I did not know politeness was a crime. For you? A little. Mason looked down at his coffee, turning the mug slowly between both hands. I thought you wanted normal. There it was. Quiet. Sharp. My fork stopped halfway to my plate. I said we could be normal. Yeah. He nodded once. I heard you. I leaned back, suddenly tired. Mason. No, it is fine. But it was not fine. Nothing about the way he avoided my eyes was fine. Nothing about the way his shoulders stayed tense was fine. A waitress came by to refill our coffee, and both of us smiled like we were not sitting in the middle of something neither of us knew how to name. The second she left, Mason exhaled through his nose. I hated it. My stomach dipped. Hated what? He finally looked up. His eyes were tired, honest in a way that made me forget the noise around us. Last night, staying on my side. pretending I was not thinking about you being right there. I could not move. I just stared at him while the diner kept happening around us. Plates clinking, fans laughing, someone yelling about a penalty call from 3 tables away. Mason swallowed, then gave this small, humorless laugh. That probably sounds insane. No, my voice came out too quiet. It does not. His fingers tightened around the mug. I do not know what I am doing, Ethan. That was the first time he sounded scared. Not dramatic scared. Real scared. The kind people try to hide under a steady voice. I know what people think I am. I know what I have always said I am. And then you look at me like you are trying so hard not to feel something. And he stopped, jaw flexing. I forgot how to breathe. And you what? Mason's eyes flicked over my face, like he was deciding whether to run or step closer. And I do not want you to stop. My chest tightened so hard it almost hurt. There it was. Not a joke. Not a crowd pushing us together. Not a hotel mix-up. Him, saying it on purpose. I looked down because if I kept looking at him, I might say too much. You cannot say things like that and then act like it is nothing. I know. Mason, I know. His voice softened. That is the problem. It is not nothing. The table between us felt suddenly useless. Too wide. Too public. Too late. I pressed my thumb against the side of my coffee cup just to have something solid to hold on to. What do you want from me? He did not answer right away. He looked past me toward the window, where fans were walking by in the morning sun, faces painted, flags over their shoulders, happy in that easy way people are when they know exactly what they are doing. Then he looked back. I want you to stop pretending you are the only one confused. My throat went tight. I tried to laugh, but it came out broken. That is a terrible thing to say before pancakes. Mason smiled then. Barely, but it was real. Yeah, my timing needs work. For the first time all morning, something loosened between us. Not fixed, not solved, just less like a wall. His hand moved across the table slowly, stopping near mine. Not touching, waiting, giving me room. I stared at it for a second, heart pounding, then let my fingers brush his. Just once, light enough that anyone could miss it. Mason did not. His eyes dropped to our hands, and his breath caught so softly I almost did not hear it. Then his fingers curled around mine under the edge of the table. Careful, warm, real. He did not smile like he had won anything. He just held on like he needed to know I would not pull away. And I did not. Not this time. For about 10 minutes, I let myself believe things had changed. Not solved. Not easy. Just changed. Mason held my hand under that diner table like it was something fragile, and I sat there pretending I was still capable of eating eggs while every nerve in my body paid attention to his thumb resting against mine. He did not make a joke. He did not pull back when the waitress came by. He just shifted his hand slightly lower, hidden by the table edge, and kept holding on. I should have felt calm. Instead, I felt terrified. Because wanting something in your head is one thing. Having it sit across from you in a crowded diner, warm and real, and looking just as scared as you, is completely different. After breakfast, we walked toward the fan zone for the afternoon match. Mason stayed close, but he did not reach for my hand again. I told myself that was normal. Public sidewalk. Crowds. His dad's comment still sitting somewhere between us. My own fear acting like a third person walking beside us. Then his phone buzzed. Mason looked down, and his whole face changed. Not much. Just enough. The kind of shift you only notice when you know someone too well. Everything okay? He locked the screen too fast. Yeah. Mason. It is nothing. I hated that answer because it sounded exactly like me. We stopped near a crosswalk while fans streamed around us, laughing, chanting, spilling beer foam onto the curb. Mason rubbed the back of his neck, eyes on the street light. My dad again. My stomach tightened. What did he say? Mason let out a short breath. Asked if I was still hanging out with my boyfriend. The word hit both of us. Boyfriend. Not because it was true. Not because it was not. Because it was suddenly outside of us, in someone else's mouth, sharpened into something that could hurt. I waited for Mason to laugh it off. He did not. He stared at the traffic like it had answers. He said it like that. My voice came out careful. Mason nodded once. Yeah. The light changed. People moved. We did not. What did you say? His jaw flexed. Nothing. That hurt more than I expected. I looked down at my shoes. Right. Mason turned immediately. Ethan. No, it is fine. I started walking because standing still felt too exposed. He caught up in 2 steps. Do not do that. Do what? Act like you did not just disappear inside your own head. I laughed once, sharp and nervous. Maybe I am just being normal. Mason flinched a little at the word. Good. I regretted it instantly. We reached the edge of the fan zone, but I could barely hear the giant screen or the crowd. All I could hear was my own brain getting cruel. Of course he said nothing. Of course he froze. Mason was confused. Mason was scared. Mason had held my hand for one breakfast, and now the real world had tapped him on the shoulder. I should not have let that happen, I muttered. Mason stopped walking. Let what happened? I turned around, heart pounding. At breakfast. His expression dropped. You think I regret that? I think you do not know what you want. The words came out too fast. Too honest. Mason looked away, and that tiny movement felt like confirmation. My chest tightened. And that is okay. I am not mad. I just cannot be the thing you try on during a trip and put back when we go home. His eyes snapped back to mine. That is not what this is. Then what is it? The question landed between us, loud even with 100 people yelling nearby. Mason opened his mouth. Nothing came out. That silence did it. Not because silence always means no. Sometimes it means fear. Sometimes it means a person is fighting for words they have never had to use before. But in that moment, all I heard was no. I nodded like I understood, even though I did not. Exactly. Mason stepped closer. Ethan, wait. I need a minute. Please. That word almost stopped me. Almost. But I was already scared enough to be stupid. I walked into the crowd before he could say anything else, letting a wave of jerseys and flags swallow me whole. For the next hour, I pretended to watch the match on the big screen. I clapped when people clapped. I laughed when the guys beside me yelled at a bad call. I checked my phone 6 times and hated myself every time there was no message. Then, finally, it buzzed. Mason, I am not scared of you. A second later, another message came through. I am scared of losing you because I have no idea how to do this right. My throat tightened so fast I had to look up at the sky. Then one more. Please stop running before I learn how to say it badly. I stood there in the middle of the noise, phone in my hand, heart beating too hard. And for the first time all day, I realized maybe Mason had not stepped back because he wanted normal. Maybe he had stepped back because what he wanted mattered enough to scare him. I found Mason near the west entrance, standing under a giant banner with his phone in both hands. He was not watching the screen. He was not watching the crowd. He was just staring at the ground like it had personally disappointed him. For a second, I almost turned around. Not because I did not want to talk. Because I did. Too much. That was the problem. Then Mason looked up, and the second he saw me, his whole face changed. Relief first. Then fear. Then something softer that made my chest ache. He took one step toward me, then stopped, like he was giving me the choice to close the rest of the distance. So I did. Slowly. Awkwardly. Like a guy walking toward his best friend and maybe something else, with no idea where to put his hands. Hey. My voice sounded rough. Mason's fingers tightened around his phone. Hey. We stood there while people pushed past us in jerseys and face paint, yelling about the match like nothing important was happening 10 feet away. I looked down at his shoes. I got your texts. Yeah. A small, nervous breath left him. They were not my smoothest work. I almost smiled. Almost. They were better than silence. That landed. Mason's eyes flicked away, then back. I know. Another pause. Too long. Too honest. I could feel both of us trying to find the old rhythm. The joke. The easy exit. The thing we always used when something got too close. Mason found it first, then let it go. I saw him do it. Saw the joke form, then die before it reached his mouth. I do not want to be normal, he said. My heart stopped being useful. What? He shoved his phone into his pocket, like he needed both hands free to be brave. Last night. This morning. 5 minutes ago. Every time we say normal, it feels like lying. I swallowed. Mason, no. Let me say it badly. His laugh was quiet and nervous. Because if I wait until I know how to say it perfectly, I am never going to say it. I nodded once. That was all I could do. Mason looked at me then. Really looked. Not around me. Not past me. At me. When Tyler joked about us, I got scared. When my dad said that stuff, I got angry. And when you walked away, I realized I was not scared because I did not want it. He stepped closer. Just enough for the noise to feel farther away. I was scared because I did. My throat tightened so fast I had to look down. His hand was right there between us, loose at his side. Familiar hand. Hand that had dragged me through crowds. held mine under a diner table, tugged my sleeve in a hotel room like it meant nothing. Except it did. It had. Maybe for longer than either of us wanted to admit. You keep saying you do not know what you are doing, I whispered. I do not. That scares me. I know. Because I have spent 3 years trying not to want this. Mason went still. His face changed again, slower this time. Like the words had reached somewhere deep. 3 years. I let out a weak laugh and rubbed at my forehead. Not my proudest statistic. Ethan. No, it is fine. I got good at it. You would say something stupid, or hug me too long, or fall asleep on my couch, and I would just tell myself you were straight, and I was making it weird. His jaw tightened. You were not making it weird. I was in love with my best friend. That is pretty weird. Not to me. I looked up. The crowd roared at something on the screen, but Mason did not even blink. Not anymore, he added, quieter. For a second, neither of us moved. Then his hand lifted. Slowly, carefully. He did not grab me. He did not rush. He just offered it, palm open between us. A choice. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. What happens when we go home? His fingers curled slightly, like the question hurt. We figure it out. That is not an answer. It is the only honest one I have. His eyes stayed on mine. But I am not asking for a World Cup version of you. I am asking for you. At home. On your couch. At the grocery store. In all the boring places too. My chest cracked open in this quiet, terrifying way. You mean that? Mason nodded. No grin. No safety net. Yeah. I looked at his hand again. Then I put mine in it. His fingers closed around mine, warm and steady, and this time he did not hide it under a table. He did not make it look accidental. He just held on in the middle of everyone. Mason exhaled like he had been holding his breath all day. Okay, he murmured. I let out a shaky laugh. That is all you have. His thumb brushed mine once. I am trying not to freak out. Me too. Cool. He glanced down at our hands, then back at me. Romantic disaster buddies. I finally smiled. Terrible name. We will workshop it. And just like that, the old Mason was there again. But not the same. Not hiding. Not pulling the joke over both of us like a blanket. We stood in the crowd, hands locked, saying nothing for a few seconds because nothing else fit. Then Mason leaned closer, his shoulder touching mine. Come back to the hotel with me after the match. I looked at him. He looked nervous, asking. Like it mattered. Like I mattered. Yeah, I said. But no pretending normal. His smile was small. Real. No pretending. The match ended with fireworks over the stadium, and Mason's hand still wrapped around mine. Not hidden. Not tucked under a table. Not brushed off as an accident. Just there. Warm. A little sweaty. Real. We walked back to the hotel with thousands of fans flooding the streets around us. Everyone singing off-key, cars honking, flags hanging out of windows. Mason kept bumping my shoulder like he always did, but now every touch had a different weight to it. Not heavier. Clearer. At the hotel entrance, he slowed down. For 1 second, I thought he was going to let go before we walked inside. Old habit. Public place. Bright lobby. People everywhere. My stomach tightened before I could stop it. Then Mason looked at our hands, looked at me, and squeezed once. Still here, he murmured. 2 words. Stupidly simple. They almost ruined me. I nodded like my throat was not closing up. Good. The elevator ride was quiet, but not awkward. Just full. Mason stood beside me, shoulder touching mine, staring at the glowing floor numbers like they were very important. Then he let out a small laugh. I am so bad at this. I glanced over. At elevators? At not panicking. You are doing okay. I almost held your hand through a rotating door. That feels advanced. I smiled despite myself. Very brave. He looked at me then, softer. I mean it though. I might mess up. The doors opened, but neither of us moved right away. I might too, I admitted. I am really good at overthinking. No way. Shocking, I know. His thumb brushed over my knuckles. Then we call each other out. Gently. Mostly. That made me laugh for real, and something in his face eased when he heard it. Back in the room, the bed did not look like a thread anymore. It was still one bed. Same white sheets. Same 2 soft pillows. Same window that whistled like it needed medical attention. But the fear around it had changed. Mason dropped his phone on the nightstand and turned toward me, suddenly nervous again. Can I sit next to you? The question was so careful it made my chest ache. This was the same guy who used to walk into my apartment without knocking, steal my fries, and fall asleep halfway across my couch. Now he was asking before sitting too close. Yeah, I said. You can sit next to me. We sat on the edge of the bed, knees almost touching. For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Then Mason reached into his backpack and pulled out the spare ticket sleeve from the first day. He had kept it, creased, bent at one corner. I should probably tell you something. I looked at him. That sounds dangerous. A little. He rubbed the back of his neck. Nobody canceled. I blinked. What? There was never another person. His eyes stayed on the ticket sleeve instead of me. I bought two from the beginning. The room went quiet in that slow, heavy way. Why did you let me think I was a backup? Mason's mouth twisted. Because saying I bought a World Cup ticket just because I wanted you beside me sounded terrifying. I stared at him, and something inside me softened so much it almost hurt. All weekend, I had been trying to survive being chosen by accident. But it was not an accident. It had never been an accident. Mason, he finally looked up. I did not have a perfect plan. I just knew every time I pictured being here, you were the person next to me. I did not know what to do with that. Not fully. So I did the only thing that felt honest. I reached for his hand. He met me halfway. No hesitation. No joke. We sat like that for a while, side by side on a hotel bed in a city that was still celebrating outside, holding hands like it was both brand new and something we had been doing for years without admitting it. Later, when the lights were off, Mason lay beside me with a few inches between us. Not far. Not rushed. Just close enough that our shoulders touched. Is this okay? He whispered. I turned my head toward him in the dark. Yeah. A pause. His voice came smaller. Are we okay? I thought about every version of us. The couch. The coffee runs. The dumb arguments. The years I spent pretending his hand on my shoulder did not matter. Then I thought about the lobby downstairs, his fingers staying locked around mine. We are different, I said. But okay. I felt him smile more than saw it. Different is okay. The next morning, we flew home. Nothing dramatic happened at the airport. No movie speech. No big public announcement. Just Mason standing beside me in the security line, tired-eyed and messy-haired, holding two coffees. When he handed me mine, our fingers touched. Usually, I would have pulled away first. This time, I did not. Mason noticed. Of course he did. He slipped his hand into mine like a question. I answered by holding on. And when his phone buzzed with a text from Tyler asking if we survived our romantic soccer vacation, Mason showed it to me with a nervous smile. What do I say? I looked at our hands, then at him. Tell him the window was awful. Mason laughed, low and relieved. Then he typed with one hand while still holding mine with the other. We did not have everything figured out. Not labels. Not family. Not what Monday would look like when the trip ended and real life started again. But we had this. His hand in mine. My coffee in the other. No one letting go. And for the first time, friendship did not feel like a hiding place. It felt like where we had started before we finally found the courage to keep going.